breaking news this morning on the way that the media is handling this leaker. They seem intent on making sure that this person both gets prosecuted and trying to basically uncover who it is as possible. Now, I'm not going to say that isn't technically a good act of journalism. It certainly is.
It's newsworthy.
It's newsworthy and it's in the public eye, but there is a vehemence to which they want to unmask this person as soon as possible to try and get them prosecuted. Not usually how we handle leakers here in the press, but whenever you're against the regime narrative, I guess that's what they've decided to do. The Washington Post hunted down and found a member of a private Discord community around a gun YouTuber where this original leaker seems to have originated from. The leaker itself is said to have been posting hundreds of classified documents on this Discord, basically that found community during the pandemic, in which he was basically trying to prove to all of them that he was a big deal,
how
that
cool
he knew what he was cool.
Yeah.
He started out hand transcribing intel, then it just eventually just started taking pictures of classified documents on the Discord before they had migrated to other channels and eventually surfaced to a level where people like us were able to report on it. So the Washington Post sat down for a video interview with one of the members of the Discord. The man's face is, well, I guess teenager's face, is blurred because apparently he's under the age of 18. He's going to give us a little bit of insight into who this person was and possible some of his motivations. Let's take a listen.
I was first made aware of these documents, I want to say about 6 to 8 months ago. I was in a Discord server by the name of Doug Shaker Central. And in this channel, there was classified documents being posted by a user who I will refer to as OG from this point. The documents were often listed as Ukraine versus Russia at first. However, it slowly spiraled into just intelligence about everything. I would not call OG a whistleblower in the slightest. I don't think that there was a goal nor some sort of accomplishment that he was looking for in sharing these documents. Of course, there's some anti-government sentiment, but that's not unlike most right-wingers in the modern day and age. OG was not hostile to the U.S. government. However, he had disagreed with several occasions, such as Waco and Ruby Ridge, and thought that the government is overreaching in several aspects. There was no heavy Snowden-like conspiracy here, like some people may believe. He is not a Russian operative. He is not a Ukrainian operative. I'll go as far to say he's not even on the east side of the world. Any claims that he is a Russian operative or pro-Russian is categorically false. He is not interested in helping any foreign agencies with their attack on the U.S. or other countries.
All right, so what can we take away from that? By the way, Waco, Ruby Ridge sounds like my kind of guy, whoever this person is. Now, in terms of his motivation, it just seems clear like there was no higher motive. It was just
like
proving to my friends
basically like shit
that
posting.
I'm cool. Yeah, he's like shit posting and being like, hey, I'm actually cool. I mean, I guess who amongst us hasn't been anonymous online and wanted to be like, no, actually, I really am a big deal, guys. I totally promise. Here's some classified intel to prove my bona fides. I mean, taking away from it, I guess what can we say? First of all, it confirms a couple of things in the background. We'd seen in the background before that there was a hunting magazine taking the background of some of the photos. And I had said here before, I'm like, whoever this guy is, I'm like, he did not do a good job because you can see all kinds of paraphernalia.
Like Gorilla Glue.
Yeah, Gorilla Glue in one.
And whatever.
Yeah, shoes, a metal ruler, hunting magazine. It's like, you know, step one, like it's obviously the Department of Justice is just going to subpoena the IP address of every single person who is in this. If they didn't use a VPN or Tor or something like that, you're screwed already from that. Then all they got to do is go to your house and be like, oh, well, so do you subscribe to this hunting magazine? Yes or no?
Check out your closet.
Right, let me look at your closet. What do your shoes look like? Oh, do you have a metal ruler like literally hanging out on your desk? So yeah, whoever this gentleman is, he didn't necessarily take the best steps. Let's go ahead and put the tear sheet up here on the screen. Their takeaway is, quote, leaker of U.S. secret documents worked on a military base, his friend says. So, I mean, what can we, I don't know, whatever, even to take this for granted, because it seems that this person has been posting all of these photos and videos and text messages and all this stuff on this Discord for a number of years. Now, he bragged to the group, his name is OG, or is known as OG, that he had worked on a military base. But the current speculation around that level of intelligence, Krystal, is it does appear to have come from somebody on the Joint Staff and the Joint Staff's office is here in Washington. look, it's possible he was part of a targeting unit or something like that, which is supporting Ukraine operations or some sort of intelligence base, which is outside of here of DC. But some of the immediacy through which people have been talking about this level of documents and the like full scale readouts that this person was getting seems to have been working on the staffs for somebody at the very, very, very high up on the food chain in the military bureaucracy.
Listen, I mean, we don't know all the details yet, but if you take this all at face value, it is pretty wild to me that this was done like very casually, as you know, with the young man they interviewed there says, you know, obviously he would have known that it was illegal. But if you were doing this in this kind of a casual manner and continuing to escalate and posting these pictures with things obviously in the background, you clearly might have known that it was illegal, but I do not think that you understood the gravity of what you were doing and that it would trigger, you know, a entire like whole of media and whole of government witch hunt to find you. So that's the part that's just really wild and extraordinary to me. I mean, when we think of past whistleblowers, they were very intentional in their actions. They, you know, had sort of clear political goals, whether if it was just, you know, transparency and exposing secrets or, you know, holding the government to account. But this seems really to have been a leak in search of clout. I mean, this is the first in the modern era. And so it's just kind of a wild phenomenon that you could have this undertaken so incredibly casually. So we'll see, you know, what else the media is able to dig up about this guy. I have to believe the government basically already knows who it is, though, right?
Yeah, well, here's the other issue is that this teenager apparently has a video that you can watch of OG, the original poster, at a shooting range with a rifle. Now, according to the post, quote, he yelled racial and anti-Semitic slurs. I want to see the video first before we start branding this guy a racist. But I mean, basically from what they could say is OG had a dark view of the government. The young member said he spoke of the United States and law enforcement as a sinister force that sought to suppress its citizens and keep them in the dark. And he ranted about government overreach. So I guess it's not even necessarily fair to say it was only clout chasing. I think he was upset by some of the stuff that he said. It's very possible that he was against much of what was going on with the Ukraine war, and he wanted to make known what exactly was really going on the ground. And again, I think we owe this person a great service. And unfortunately, he seems to have not taken any care at all. He was doing video calls, apparently.
Yeah.
Apparently, the people recognized the background of his house in some of the photos that were distributed. So I think you're right, Krystal.
Yeah.
Whoever this guy is, like, he's either in a jail cell or, you know, like what happened with Edward Snowden, where there are 12 cargo vans outside his house and who are all happen to be doing electrical work in his neighborhood at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, in a sense, like, it's interesting to know what his motivations could have been, you know, which could be a mix of, basically like trying to prove he's badass to this small Discord server, which seems, at least what the teenager said, that seems to have been the primary, like, impetus for him posting information and then continuing to escalate to really prove to them, like, no, I really am that badass, mixed with, obviously, this, like, anti-government, you know, ideology under the surface. But, you know, in a sense, also, it really doesn't matter what his motivations were, because he has, in my view, done a great service in exposing the lies that the U.S. government has been telling and exposing, you know, the reality on the ground of this war and providing us with some useful information that can help us make what are absolutely critical decisions moving forward about U.S. involvement in this war. So, you know, on one hand, it's fascinating to know who this is and, like, what was going on and how did these things end up on some, like, random tiny Discord server. On the other hand, it really doesn't matter his reasons for, you know, being a whistleblower here, exposing these secrets.
You know, to Glenn Greenwald reacting to this immediately, he says, quote, "The democracy dies in darkness," Washington Post now does the job of the U.S. security state, hunting down its leakers, doing everything to expose their identity, says everything about the real function and the ideology of these media corporations. Glenn actually points out that the Washington Post did the same thing with Edward Snowden. While they gleefully used part of the archives that he obtained, published those documents, and got a Pulitzer Prize, they demanded he be imprisoned and never pardoned. And unfortunately, that already seems to be the case with the initial media reaction. You know, we have here a snap reaction from MSNBC, where they go to one of their retired CIA officers who immediately is like, we have to catch and hunt down this traitor. This is how the media, our job is to expose classified information and secrets regardless of what the consequences are. The consequences are the job of the US government. That is not our job is to produce information. And this is how a news network immediately reacted to this. Let's take a listen.
Officials believe the documents are most likely authentic, though some may have been doctored.
Let's bring in right now retired CIA officer Mark Polymeropoulos. He's an NBC News security and intelligence analyst. Also, the Washington Post David Ignatius still with us as well. Mark, okay, let's pretend you're at a CIA briefing. You have 30 seconds to explain to your superiors what the hell's going on here. What the hell's going on here?
So I think it's a potentially serious compromise. We don't know yet. Key points are we have to catch the traitor. Number two, kind of reestablish or reassure our allies, our bilateral relationships.
So, number one, we have to catch the traitor. He doesn't even get into the substance. He doesn't even work for the CIA anymore, at least allegedly. I don't know
I don't think you ever really leave the agency, do you?
I'm not sure there is any such thing as former CIA. But
Yeah,
look, I mean, this is what they want. They're doing the job of the FBI, like hunting down this person and trying their best. You know, if I was the Washington Post, you know what I would do? I'd be like, hey man, you want to give me some more of those documents? You taking any screenshots in that Discord server while you were over there? And then I would publish every goddamn story I could, and then maybe we can talk about who the leaker is.
That's such a great point, because we know that there were way more documents that were
300
originally posted in this Discord server. The most that any news outlet has at this point is like 50.
Yeah.
So if you're the Washington Post and you basically track down, okay, who this is and what the server, why isn't that your focus? And I think, what has been clear in the media's very selective coverage of these documents is, number one, their concern first and foremost seems to be for the sanctity of the security state and making sure that they're all okay and that our intelligence and the CIA won't be compromised and whatever. And number two, the stories and the framing of what they do report on is really cherry-picked. I mean, they intentionally focus on the pieces that can be used to justify a more hawkish response. They reiterate over and over again, oh, it's doctored on the Russian casualty numbers, not ever really making it clear that, okay, that happened after the fact.
Yeah.
And that's the only doctored element that has been pointed out by anyone at this point. So there's that piece. And then the other thing they like to emphasize is how deep our intel was into the Russian military apparatus and how cool our spies are. So you can see by the fact that we've covered pieces just here, our little Breaking Points team, that the gigantic New York Times, Washington Post, NBC, Fox, CNN, any of these people, that none of them picked up on, because we're actually interested in what these documents reveal, not just quote unquote catching the traitor. I mean, unbelievable.
Look, I tried to get in touch with some of the guys on the Discord. It's actually pretty hard to find. If we had the journalistic resources, and clearly they, chartered a plane and flew immediately. If we had the resource, I'd be like, all right, let's sit down, man. What do you got? Let's go through it all. Then our team and all that, we would go through, we would report every single story, and then maybe we would get to who the leaker is. Although, I'm not sure I would necessarily want that on my conscience. But if you look at how it fits with the Washington Post editorial board itself, let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen, guys. They say the most damaging part of the leaked Ukraine documents is the leak itself. Oh, do tell, the trove of the leaked documents, some marked top secret, is a sensational intelligence brief, a highly damaging one. More than the juicy tidbits, most of which entail detailed information of the Ukraine war, the most sensational and damaging aspect of the story may be the fact of the leak itself. And on that score, how and why these documents came to see the light of day, little is known. If most of these documents are genuine, they say, it is with apparent alterations intended. Of course, they try and point to that. But really, what does the editorial board come out to? They say that the leak itself was very damaging for the Ukraine war, and thus they basically come to the conclusion, that this person has done immense damage to U.S. and Ukrainian national security. I mean, the only reason that this person has done any damage is because he told us the truth when they were lying to us. Right. He did damage to their lies. So they basically prefer the lies over the truth. Have you ever seen a media organization that wants less info What's wrong with you? You want to sit there as a Pentagon scribe and just print the BS that they tell you? What comes through this? The rest of the world, many of our allies, don't agree with us. Number two, Zelensky actually does want long-range missiles to strike directly inside of Ukraine. What? Number three, that the situation in Ukraine is way more dire than they tell us and that and the U.S. tells us. And also, here's the other part. I don't know why people aren't going with this. The Russians are doing terribly. That's another thing that comes out of this thing.
No, it's embarrassing for everyone. Yeah. It is. And I mean, yeah, another part that was included in these documents is Russia is actually open to Brazil's offer of helping to negotiate a peace with a host of, unaligned countries. So there is a lot of really important information here, but that seems not to be the primary focus of the media. They say in that editorial piece that the U.S. authorities will urgently need to trace the leak's provenance. The Justice Department has launched an investigation intended to do just that. Going back to that MSNBC clip, the Morning Joe clip with like the CIA ghoul who's immediately like, catch the traitor. The other guest that they have on there is David Ignatius, who has a column in also the Washington Post that uses what came out to, again, like sort of cherry pick this and call for a more hawkish approach in Ukraine, which is something we've seen in a number of places. I have his piece pulled up here. He says that our defense production capability should be the, quote, trump card for the U.S. In World War II, the U.S. converted manufacturing plants across the country to make tanks, planes, and aircraft carriers that simply overwhelmed Japan and Germany. No similar mobilization has taken place this time. Why not? Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has met several times with defense contractors, but why hasn't President Biden appointed the equivalent of FDR's War Production Board? Do you get literally calling for a World War II style mobilization to supply Ukraine in this proxy war we're fighting with Russia? Like, that's what they're using these documents to call for catching the traitor and to call for a dramatic World War II level mobilization. Why hasn't Biden done what it takes like FDR did in World War II? I mean, to me, this is just insanity. Complete insanity.
And when you read even more of the column, Krystal, that you're referencing, the David Ignatius column, and he's like, Lloyd Austin needs to explain to the American people why he's not doing more to fight in Ukraine. He even references, one of the maps that we actually saw. I didn't even see it was all that noteworthy. If anything, it's responsible. It basically says U.S. spy drones should not fly over Crimea to avoid any sort of incident over Russia. He's like, why are we doing that? That's too cautious. And I'm like, too cautious? You have people in the military who are trying to not get us into a full-scale war. They should be applauded for that. And actually, if anything, that's good on the Biden administration. One of the two things that we learn that validate some of the Biden admins is that caution is worthy, and also don't ever give Zelensky long-range missiles or jets because we know exactly what the hell he's going to do with them.
Correct. Yeah. And it also, listen, if there were a handful of David Ignatius-style takes in the media balanced on the other side by people who were saying some of the things that we're saying, like, hey, the only thing that held Zelensky back from long-range attacks deep inside of Russia was the fact we didn't give him the long-range missiles that he's been begging us for a year now. Maybe we should, consider the way that this could escalate out of control. And look, here's China's red lines. Maybe we should consider what that means as well. If you also had those voices there, too, you could say, okay, this is like a healthy ecosystem. There's some debate going on. You're looking at these documents, trying to parse. The media only ever pushes in the hawkish direction. I have seen no one making any of the points that we're making within the corporate mainstream media. They only ever apply pressure in a hawkish direction. Liberal media, conservative media largely, it is really consistent across the board. You've got MSNBC with their CIA dude, Catch the Traitor. You've got side by side with David Ignatius on the very same program, the Morning Joe, like elite table setter for Washington program, saying, oh my God, we're being way too cautious about not getting into World War III. So that's how you end up with the foreign affairs landscape that we have. It's only ever goes in one direction, and that has never been more clear than it is right now.
Yeah, it really is. And look, they want blood. The fact that this guy is anti-government and likes guns, brother, it's going to be a rough go for you,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.